In the 2007 NBA draft, Greg Oden was the first overall pick, drafted ahead of Kevin Durant. And while KD will retire as one of the best players of all time, Oden was one of the biggest disappointments. Oden could have been a perennial all-star and a defensive player of the year, and some even compared him to Shaq. But sadly, injuries turned his career into a disaster, and he will forever be one of the biggest what-ifs in NBA history.
I'll be remembered as the biggest bust in NBA history.
Greg was always a big boy. He entered high school as a 7-footer and put together one of the most impressive youth careers in the history of Indiana. Even as a freshman, Oden's ability to change a game defensively was astonishing. He averaged 8 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks per game, shooting 72% from the field. His school lost in the regional semifinals that freshman year, but that would be the last time Oden lost a game in the high school postseason. Playing alongside Mike Conley, Oden would go on to win 3 consecutive state championships, and their Lawrence North High School had a 103-7 record during Oden's 4-year tenure. Greg was named Indiana's Mr. Basketball, High School National Player of the Year, and McDonald's All-American. Oden had countless college offers, eventually opting for Ohio State, where he continued to dominate. He missed the start of the season due to a wrist injury, and because of which he could hardly dribble with his left hand. But Oden was simply too big, too strong, and too agile for competition to really stop him. He averaged 15.7 points, 9.6 rebounds, and 3.3 blocks, and shot 62% from the field. And the Buckeyes entered March Madness as a #1 seed and a tournament favorite. Ohio State made it all the way to the finals against defending champion Florida Gators, where Oden had the best game of his college career. Against future NBA All-Stars Joakim Noah and Al Horford, Oden racked up 25 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 blocks, showcasing all-around excellence on both ends of the court. But Florida was too experienced and too deep, and they won their second straight NCAA title. Despite the loss, the future was bright for Oden. Throughout his high school and college career, Greg never lost a home game. He was named a first-team All-American alongside Kevin Durant, and they were the first freshmen to do it since 1990. Durant and Oden were considered the best prospects in the 2007 NBA draft, which also featured Noah, Horford, Mike Conley, Brook Lopez, and Marc Gasol. But even though there were injury concerns, Oden was considered a sure thing. He was a player who had an NBA body since he was 15, and somebody who could impact the game right away, especially on defense. Some analysts compared Oden to Shaq, and in terms of size and agility, it's easy to see why. Oden was a 280-pound, 7-foot monster who could move quickly in tight spaces, and these guys don't come around very often. In 2007, all NBA teams still played with 2 traditional big men, so nobody was surprised when the Portland Trail Blazers selected Oden with the first overall pick, ahead of KD, Horford, and Conley. And even though nobody knew it back then, getting drafted first overall would be one of Oden's last career highlights. But before we get to the subsequent downfall of Oden's career, let us first tell you about today's video sponsor, SeatGeek, the #1 rated ticketing app with over 28 million downloads. There's more than 70,000 events every single day, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. Every ticket across the web is in one place, so you can be confident you're getting a good deal. And they're all rated on a scale of 1 to 10. So look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. Each ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps. And of course, we had to come through for you guys. By using the code NONSTOP, you'll save $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. Yep, that's $20 off your first purchase with promo code NONSTOP. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app. This opportunity won't last long, unfortunately, much like Oden's first NBA year. Because less than 3 months after being drafted, Oden had microfracture surgery on his right knee, which caused him to miss his entire first season. Oden finally made his NBA debut in 2008, but it took him only 13 minutes to get injured again. This time, it was his foot, and he left the game without scoring a single point. A few weeks later, he returned to action, but he only recorded 3 points and 2 rebounds against the Heat, and the first bust whispers started to emerge. But then, finally, Oden showcased his true talent. He recorded double-doubles in 3 of his next 4 games, including a 22-point, 10-rebound performance in only 29 minutes against the Warriors. He stayed healthy for a while, and we finally saw a glimpse of what was advertised. During a 5-game stretch in January, Oden averaged 17 points, 12 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks per game. On February 8th against the Knicks, Oden had 17 points, 15 rebounds, and a career-high 6 blocks. Just a week later, Greg injured his kneecap and missed more than a month of action. Despite 2 injuries, he played a solid 61 games as a rookie, finishing the season with 9 points, 7 rebounds, and 1 block in 21 minutes per game. Blazers made the playoffs, but Oden wasn't healthy enough to play more than 16 minutes and 5 points per game, and Portland lost in the first round. When the 2009-10 season started, Oden wasn't in the best shape, but he was available, which was the most important thing. He recorded 12 rebounds and 5 blocks in the season opener and continued to improve as the year progressed. Oden had his best game of the season in late November, torching the Chicago Bulls for 24 points, 12 rebounds, and 2 blocks on 7 of 8 shooting. He recorded 13 points, 20 rebounds, and 4 blocks just a few games later against the Heat. Greg finally started showing signs of greatness, and the Blazers still hoped he'd become the league's next dominant center. Oden became the only player in the NBA to average at least 16 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 blocks per 36 minutes during the 2009-10 season. But there was a problem. His season lasted less than 2 months. Just 21 games into the season, Oden fractured a patella in his left knee.
Oh, his knee is... Holy cow, Portland doesn't need this.
And when he was carried off the court on a stretcher, nobody knew the proportion of the disaster that lay ahead. 11 months after his last game, and days before the start of the new season, Oden had another microfracture surgery, which ended his 2010-2011 season before it even began. All of these injuries took a huge toll on Oden, even more mentally than physically. Because he felt like he disappointed the Blazers, his family, and friends, Oden stopped coming out of his house and developed an alcohol and painkiller addiction. His routine became beer and whiskey coupled with 2 Percocets, at least 2 Vicodin, and at least 3 sleeping pills. It got to the point where I was taking so many pills and drinking just to sleep at night that even if I didn't want to drink, I wouldn't be able to sleep, said Oden. Despite all the problems, the Blazers still didn't want to give up on him, and they gave him a 1-year contract extension. But before the 2012 season started, Oden suffered another setback, which postponed his comeback. And then on February 3, 2012, Oden underwent arthroscopic surgery on his right knee. 17 days later, he was scheduled for the same procedure on his left knee. However, during the operation, further damage to the articular cartilage was discovered, and Oden underwent a 3rd microfracture surgery. Because Greg got ruled out not only for the 2012 season, but also for 2013, Blazers decided it was time to cut him. But despite Oden playing just 82 games in 6 years and having more knee surgeries than playoff games, the promise of a dominant center was still tempting to NBA teams. In a low-risk, high-reward move, the 2-time champions Miami Heat signed Oden for the 2014 season. But as the NBA game grew faster, Oden's agility and explosiveness vanished, and he only played in garbage time minutes, scoring a measly 67 total points for the Heat. It became painfully obvious that he was just a washed-up version of a great talent that never blossomed. After the season ended, Oden continued to drown his sorrows in alcohol. And after one drunken argument with his girlfriend, otherwise peaceful Greg went ballistic, hitting her several times in the head, splitting open a wound that covered her face in blood.
Greg Oden is arrested for domestic battery. Lawrence police made that arrest about 3:30 this morning at a relative's house.
Oden pleaded guilty to a felony charge of battery with moderate bodily injury, for which he received probation, a fine, and an order to attend counseling and Alcoholics Anonymous classes. That nasty incident sobered him up, and Oden started to train again, attempting one final return to basketball. On August 26, 2015, Oden signed a 1-year, $1.2 million contract with the Yangtze Dragons of the Chinese Basketball Association. In 25 games for the club, he averaged 13 points, 12.6 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game, mainly off the bench. But the Dragons were not a playoff team, and chose to cut Oden near the end of the season. That was the final nail in the coffin of his painful, injury-riddled career. Greg decided to return to Ohio State, and in 2019, he graduated with a bachelor's degree in sports management. He currently works at Butler University as director of basketball operations. And even though Greg Oden called himself one of the biggest busts in NBA history,
I'll be remembered as the biggest bust in NBA history.
we don't think of him that way. Yes, he scored just 840 career points, which is the lowest mark ever by a first overall pick, if we discount the 2 first overall picks from 1948 and 1952. But unlike Anthony Bennett, Kwame Brown, or Michael Candyman Olowokandi, Oden wasn't unproductive because he wasn't good enough. He just had bad luck with injuries. If he didn't shatter those glass knees more times than we can even count, Oden would have almost certainly become one of the best centers in the NBA and a perennial all-star. Greg had a great basketball IQ. He was huge with long arms and nimble feet. Throughout high school and college, Oden was one of the most efficient players in American basketball history, shooting over 65% from the field. In 2009, with the 21 NBA games he was healthy, Oden shot over 60%, averaging 8.5 rebounds and 2.3 blocks in just 24 minutes per game. If Oden had the chance to be healthy for at least 5 years, he'd fight with Dwight Howard for Defensive Player of the Year between 2009 and 11, when Dwight won 3 consecutive times. But just like in the case of Sam Bowie, who the Blazers drafted ahead of Michael Jordan, Oden will not be remembered not for his play or his talent. He will forever be that guy with the busted knees the Blazers took instead of Kevin Durant.